Yeah, first of all, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
I watched it this afternoon. Really, really, really enjoyed it. So I guess the first question for me is, you had a pretty decent 2024 with this included. So just wondered for you as, at the starting point, what was the first kind of contact with the director and the script, and how you kind of went from there.
I think I was very lucky. My name cropped up um, about this project. Paul, I mean, I suppose hadn't heard of me, then did some sleuthing, and then he emailed me and just said, "I've got a script I'd like you to read," and I read it, and then we had a chat. And I mean, I hadn't read anything like it ever. I don't think. I just thought it was utterly unique, not merely the subject matter, it being about tent boxing, which I had no frame of reference for. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I'd sort of heard of sort of Victorian pugilists, and that's the closest I could get, but I'd never heard of like this peripatetic thing that travels around from community to community as like a fairground attraction. So that got me. But then there was also this real kind of poetic, existential family drama between two brothers. And I think anything to do with brothers also gets me, piques my interest. I have three brothers, and I think sibling relationships are kind of endlessly fascinating for good and for bad. And and so yeah, so
I
that so
have
that got
one.
me.
I have one. I can attest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, yeah, of course, we can sort of often relate to that because we do have siblings. But I think especially with older brothers, and so yeah, and then I didn't know who else was cast at that point, and I also thought about sort of boxing in and of itself, and I'd done a bit of boxing, but um, you know, I never had an opportunity to sort of train in something as specific as that, and something that I enjoyed doing as well. Um, so that was great, and I just thought this script is full of like hidden depths and all these kind of secrets, and the subtext was amazing, on every line, and I just thought it was really well crafted and put together, and I was very excited at the prospect of going to the outback and shooting this crazy film.
Also, you don't get the opportunity all the time to work with a director who's done a Kylie Minogue music video. That doesn't always doesn't always come up all the
Yeah, all worked with Nick Cave. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
time.
incredible.
Or was it Elvis Costello as well? You worked with?
I think so. Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's
so.
right.
Yeah, I mean that's music videos is such a in terms of like directors. There's so many that come from that industry. I can imagine as a
Yeah,
filmmaker, very visual kind of, and he kind of almost plot out the story for you. What was your first meeting with him like?
I think well, it's over Zoom because he was in Melbourne, and we just had a really great conversation. I mean, I really like Paul's brain. He's got this sort of he's just sort of interested in the world, and it's like there's not much you can't talk to him about that he doesn't know something about, or something new, something kind of exciting. And I think he sort of carried that through. I think in terms of the aesthetic, yeah, I mean those music videos were breaking boundaries back in the day. I mean some of the early stuff with Nick Cave and Kylie Minogue stuff, and and everybody else, like they're super exciting to watch. And it's yeah, I mean we had just great conversation about everything, and then about boxing and about um, Paul will often pull out these sort of anecdotes or things that aren't immediately like relevant necessarily, but there's like tidbits of something in there that you can take away and you go, oh, okay, that's actually a really interesting thing, that I can use. I can sort of apply it somewhere. It has some application. It's just not immediately obvious where that is. Um, and we just had a really great time doing it. And I consider Paul a friend now, and we still speak. And I'd watch his other films as well, his feature films. I just thought they were also really exciting films. And I thought the stuff here that he's doing, it's an experiment, and he's also an incredibly humble person and is sort of aware that it's an experiment. This is one really big, expensive experiment, you know, that he is really passionate about, and he surrounded himself with people who are equally passionate about it. And we're going to go out and we're going to do it. And and see what happens. I just That's a really cool way of thinking about making a film, I suppose.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna, as a kind of independent production, how quickly did you shoot it? Because sometimes you hear the stories of 20 days, 28 days, this kind of thing. And if you, because I couldn't find anything online as to to ask you about it, so I thought I'd ask you about it. And if it was quite quick, how helpful is that in terms of, particularly for this kind of story, that you're moving at a pace that you're kind of constantly moving and evolving on the spot, if you like.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the day count was on the shoot, but it, a kind of minimal window, I guess 2 months or something. Somewhere in there, bit less than that. Um, but we had the luxury of like actual real preparation. I think some of that was scuppered for whatever reason. There was, the obvious stuff that that always happens. Losing locations or like losing a couple of days for whatever reason, financial issues. It's an indie movie, but we all just like got stuck in and we kind of mucked in and um I had this sort of training process for 6 months here and then a window of time when I got to Perth training with a different trainer. So lots of stuff changed then because it's interesting that the language of boxing, it gets lost in translation somehow, even from like another English speaking place. But then there was sort of the anachronisms of like boxing training in terms of it being in the 1970s that we had to think about. But and then we had this great period of time working with David Field, who's an Australian actor, who's a brilliant actor, where he would rehearse with us and sort of pick the script apart. And it was unfortunate he wasn't there for the shoot, but we did that with him and with Paul. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It felt like we'd been there already for quite a long time before we started shooting. We had I had a good rapport with everyone I was working with at that point. And then we were suddenly in this other world in Kalgoorlie, which is 7 hours away from Perth, which is the nearest, most isolated city in the world or something. And we really were in the middle of nowhere, in this mining town that has a very dark, haunted history in and of itself. Uh, yeah, and then the cast, I mean, Tom Bateman, Phoebe Tonkin, Hunter Page-Lochard, Mark Hall Smith, Shaka Cook, Nathan Phillips, just like unlikely band, like reprobates. We were, but there was like a real sense of camaraderie and like
Yeah, yeah.
I can feel that. You feel that cohesion in the film as well, and that feels very lived in. And yeah, I miss it. It's a very fond memory I have of that time. It was extraordinary.
You don't always hear that with certain films, do you? You talk to actors, and sometimes it comes out that it's a little bit different. But that's good, considering where you were, 7 hours from any other
Yeah,
person. That's quite an experience
civilization. Yeah,
unto itself. That's like a Bear Grylls special or something, doing something like that. In terms
yeah,
of the film itself, I mean, all sport movies come with prematures, especially with boxing. There's been so many of them, and everyone's tried to, take what we know about the sport, but kind of change it and tell stories about people. But this one is very different. Was that one of the lures for you, in that even though it was a sport movie and it was going to ask some stuff of you, that it was very different? You weren't necessarily stepping into, a Rocky scenario, if you like. There's a story there, and it's about a very specific part of the sport. Was that one of the lures for you, that it did have those different elements than just what people might be expecting from something like this?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the expectations of a film like that, we want to sort of look at the interplay between sort of violence and hypermasculinity and I don't know that necessarily interests me all that much because I think it's a very obvious take on boxing as a sport. There's many other things going on that drives a person to want to continue being punched in the head as a job. That and having done it for that 6 month period of time, and I still do it now. I still love boxing and actually doing it. In terms of moving your body, in terms of competition, in terms of survival, because that's essentially what it is. And those sort of baser instincts in us, if you like, the id, the anima, the like things that actually are driving us behind the scenes all the time. That's an interesting thing to think about in terms of sport and in terms of boxing. And I think the way that plays out in the movie is, well, we are seeing them having to survive. And it really is, oftentimes they are on the cusp. And if they don't get the tent to this next town and set it up and continue doing this thing that most of the time I imagine is very isolating, lonely, and a drudgery, then they won't have enough money to live. So in terms of it being a discussion about that, about working class Australians in the outback in the 70s, that's what got me excited. And then the kind of teenager in me was excited about being punched in and punching other people in the head. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that also what's always intriguing about particularly boxing in terms of what you go for, like you mentioned, the kind of psychology of it, both before, during, and after, what it takes for someone to want to do that all the time and
Yeah.
almost not be able to live without it, which the character in this, you can kind of feel his passion for it, but also his kind of need for it, his obsession for it. I can imagine when you were reading it, there was so much to unpack that it wasn't just okay, I need to get in physical shape. There's all this other stuff, and obviously the relationship with the brother and relationship with Phoebe's character. You don't always get that. Sometimes it's just about the sport and the kind of the bravado that goes with it. Whereas there's a lot more to it.
Absolutely. I mean, there are all these resonances and associations with the sport for kids, in that it was just after throwing a boxing match and then his brother winning and them getting in the car that he crashes his car and, maims his brother and kills his dad. Sorry, that's a spoiler thing, but whatever. Like, it happens at the beginning of the film. That frames the whole movie. His association with the sport is irreparably damaged. That is irretrievable. There is no going back from that. And so every time he gets in the ring, there are resonances of that time, and of what he's done to his brother, what he's, indefinitely their relationship has changed. There is kind of no resolution or seemingly no resolution. There is no escaping that. There is no escaping my existence now that I have brought upon myself. That's a frightening thought for anybody. And I think also, hopefully, it speaks to that feeling of being trapped, of seemingly there is no way out of my situation. I think that's something lots of people will be able to relate to for one reason and another. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about working with Tom and Phoebe, particularly Tom, because a lot of people only know him from some of the obviously he's Kenneth Branagh's kind of quote unquote right hand man in some of the Christie movies, and this is totally different. It was such a thing that when I watched it, the trailer before I watched it, I was like, it's nothing like him. That's insane. And he's talking differently, and he's got all these physical attributes. What's it like? What was it like for you guys as a trifecta to bring that? Because you all got kind of quote unquote your own sparring matches with each other, not necessarily just a love relationship or love hate relationship or anything else. Every single one of you three has something to work with the other person. I just wondered how the process. And you said you had quite a lot of prep for it, so I wondered how helpful that was.
Yeah. Well, we kind of only really met. It was sort of unfortunate because Tom would have been in London at the same time I was doing all this training, but there was some like miscommunication. So we didn't actually cross paths until we got to Australia, which was odd. But he and I saw eye to eye on a lot. During the rehearsal process, there's a lot of negotiation goes on, but he is super bright. He's clearly really thought about who this person is. And not that I'm saying, I don't know, that sounds like I expected him not to, but I don't know, you'd be surprised about some actors. And he came with this wealth of stuff, and I did too. And we just created this thing together, and there was just an immediate sense of respect. I hope that's reciprocated, but there definitely is from my end. And we knew that that wasn't going to be easy because there was a lot of kind of microaggression there, and there's a lot of bitterness there, and we were going to have to play that and play that conceivably well. So that has its ramifications in the kind of the social aspect of filming together. But I think he and I, we got on really well. He likes to, like to keep himself to himself. The rest of the time, kind of socially. I mean, Phoebe and I became, yeah, really close, and again, like just had a kind of immediate rapport with each other and an understanding about what it was that we needed to achieve, and would often discuss that. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it just they're just like professionals. They're great. They're really good actors. Yeah.
In terms of this movie, I'm always interested with this because obviously it's an independent movie and it's financed by so many different people, all that kind of stuff, and you're praying and counting your blessings that the film got made, let alone that people will see it. For you as an actor, what's the best thing about making a movie like this, knowing that okay, it's not going to be seen by hundreds of millions of people, but it's a project that you care about, and it's a project that when people do see it and they have, from what I can gather, taken to it very, very well. What's the kind of special place in your heart for a movie like that? Because you don't always get to do that, even if you do make a bigger movie that's seen by millions of people. It's these movies that kind of resonate more for you as an actor than anything else. How important is it also to keep these movies kind of alive, given that the industry is in a crazy place right now?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think that they often are. Indie films are where we can have uh, conversations within the making of the film itself and in the content of the film outside the norm and outside the expectations of the norm. It should be a very free, liberated place where those conversations can take place, and that is, I would argue, where art is made, right? Because it is about having difficult conversations about the world and about our experience of it, and that is something I'm very passionate about. How long have we been having a conversation about the indie world dwindling or it being so difficult that it's not tenable for people to continue doing that? Well, that's a real problem, uh, because of what I said previously, and that worries me. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, for me, that is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about the art of filmmaking and the art of theatre and the art of acting. um I truly, really, and storytelling really key. That's the sort of umbrella thing. But I don't know. Is something being if people are, I don't know, people are, it sounds like, I don't know, that there's some powers at play that are stopping that from happening. And let's face it, it's often financial, isn't it? That we as humans are doing ourselves a disservice, really. That will have a kind of seismic impact on the kinds of films that are able to be made in the future and what we're allowed to talk about in the making of a film. I mean, that's a worry because it's a like subtle, insidious form of censorship, really, fundamentally. Um, so yeah, films should be problematic. I mean, they should be controversial. They should be difficult. It should be provoking. And if it isn't, if our ability to do that and make films like that is hindered, I don't know where we're at, really.
My time's about to run out, but I have one more question for you. I don't know where you sit on this and whether you're on social media, but are you sick of seeing that Netflix dance yet? And the life that it's taken? Because honestly, I can't go on social media any day without seeing either you guys doing that dance on Perfect Couple or other people trying to perfect it. I mean, it's so rare that you make something that penetrates like that. Like it's just become
Yeah,
obviously so it's different now with social media and it becomes a thing. But
yeah.
what's been your kind of, in the months since it's been released? And obviously you can sit and I can go on Netflix right now and watch it if, again, if I want to. Have you kind of got your head around just that opening credits has become such a big thing?
Well, actually, you asking me, okay, now you sort of framed this for me, but you've given it some context because you're not the first person to ask me about this.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know whether it's embarrassing or not, but I am not au fait with social media. I'm not on any social media. So I have no awareness of this being such a phenomenon that's rife.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, that is alarming. Um, and and I don't really know how to respond to it. I think is it something that's sort of been, I don't know, what is that? Like why what is the reflex? Why do people take to that as such a thing? My take on why that dance is at the beginning of the episodes of The Perfect Couple is because it's this sort of grotesque, almost like a dance macabre, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's
Mm.
sort of like then takes you into this uh vacuous world. Because let's face it, it is, and that's it. And we kind of, we are attempting to lampoon that a bit. And like, why not? That's what it is. It should be satirical and whatever. But have we kind of misunderstood it by now trying to replicate the phenomenon on social media? Are we missing the point by doing that? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a very positive reaction to it. But then, when you see it in context, you're kind of like, I'm not sure some people, I guess it's the song as well. The song is quite catchy, but then the song is about some of the things that you talk about and do in the show. So it's kind of like, it's a
Yeah.
strange dichotomy, but that's social media, I guess. It's a crazy one. I'd rather just watch, funny dog videos. That's usually why I
Yeah.
get with my evenings. Listen, Billy, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best with the film, and yeah, good luck with everything. Thanks so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey You Guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey You Guys!